Hi, everybody, and welcome to Katrina, Rasbold, and Friends. And as I always say every single time, I know the coolest people, and I'm so excited to bring you yet another cool person. And this cool person, I had the privilege of meeting, gosh, Jewel, what, a year ago, I guess, maybe a little bit longer in the
Maybe 2 years ago, book club. Yeah, we did a book club.
Yeah, in the Temple of Witchcraft book club.
And we did Uncrossing, and it was so much fun. That was one of my favorite books that we did in that book club.
That's so sweet. I met so many cool people then. And I thought it was just going to be a drop in. And I was sort of like nudging Jason, like, can I come back next week or next time? So, everybody, this is my friend Jewel Nile. Jewel, tell us about you.
Well, thanks, Katrina. It's so great to see you again. And if you all haven't read Uncrossing, it is an awesome book. And I just loved going through all the exercises there. So I'm Jewel. I've been a spiritual seeker my whole life since I was a child, and a magical practitioner since I was a teenager. It was in the 90s when I first encountered my first copy of A Guide for the Solitary Practitioner by Scott Cunningham and some books by Laurie Cabot at like the local Barnes and Noble. And I just remember looking at these books and being enchanted by how beautiful they were, just robed figures and altars and cinder blocks in nature and like smoke wafting through the air. And I was immediately captivated by the mystical. I also loved studying fairy tales and reading about ancient mythologies from many different cultures. But then when I was 16, I grew up in a evangelical household, which was pretty intense. And my mother found my book collection under my bed. She freaked out. She screamed at me, made me get rid of my books. And so any kind of independent thought and self-expression was punished. So I no longer had my books. And so I took a kind of meandering path, exploring different forms of spirituality that would not get me as much in trouble. And I started meditating, and I ended up in Zen Buddhism, which I've been practicing now for 15 years. And that is a core part of my practice. So for a full decade, every day that I got off work, I would literally spend at retreats up in the mountains meditating in Taos, New Mexico. But I also kind of would gradually do like folk magic on the side to just get through the day. And it was a very practical thing. And so about 8 years ago, I became more active in the pagan polytheist community. And it's been really, really wonderful to reclaim that part of myself that was always magical, that was always connected to nature, and just didn't have the ability to express itself when I was younger. So that's pretty much who I am.
You know, I think your mom probably would have rather found porn in your room than that.
Oh my gosh. They actually wouldn't let me get a computer until I was like well into high school. All my friends had computers, but they were worried that we would get corrupted by porn and all these things. I'm like, you can do other things on the internet as well. But, I mean, the good news about not having everything I wanted when I was young is that I don't take it for granted now. And so I have more than compensated. My library has grown significantly because I wasn't able to have the books I wanted. I actually went back and bought the really old version of Scott Cunningham's A Guide for the Solitary Practitioner that had the original cover that I fell in love with.
I remember that cover, yeah.
And so, yeah, I've kind of compensated over the years with indulging more in books because I couldn't when I was younger.
Like we do. I got such a bizarre, I guess you would say, writer fangirl boner when Christine Ashworth, who's Scott Cunningham's sister, held up my book and said, I love this book. I was like, Scott Cunningham's sister's holding my book. She's touching it.
And I read Christine Ashworth's book as well, and it really touched me because there's a lot of people that publish books about magical techniques. Not a lot of people publish books about magical practitioners as people, as individuals. What are their lives like? What are their families like? How do they navigate, being queer and magical and, like everything that went on. So I love that she gave me a glimpse into like Scott Cunningham's life as his little sister. That was amazing. Or was she his older sister? I can't remember now, but yeah, I think she was younger.
I don't remember.
Yeah.
I do not remember. And I read and reviewed that book, and I don't remember. I had a similar experience when, in fact, being able to define myself that I was pagan. There was a book called People of the Earth, and it was by Ellen Everett Hoffman. And it came out 40 years or so ago. And I found that book, and it was a series of interviews with all the movers and shakers of that moment. And I read it and just tears just flowing because I felt so overwhelmed. This was before the internet. So, you're the unicorn, you're the weirdo, that isn't relating to anybody around you. And suddenly there's this whole nest of people.
Yeah.
That was awesome. You and I have something to talk about as we move through the interview or the questions or after. That was the original topic we were going to use. I haven't forgotten about that. So we will still do that.
Okay, I don't remember what that is, but it'll be a surprise for me.
I'll hit you up and you'll just go with it. It'll be good.
I'll just go with it.
You'll go with it. So, what do you think happens to you when you die?
I think many different things can happen when we die. And I think that the best way to catch a glimpse of what can happen when we die is to be with people who are dying and to be present with people who have recently crossed over. So I'll actually tell you a few different stories of people who have passed away in my family. So 3 people I was close to: my grandfather, my grandmother, and my dad. And each of their deaths were different. So my grandfather, I think he had an inkling that he might be passing soon, and he didn't tell anyone because he started stocking the house full of groceries and filled the pantry. And my grandma was like, "Why are you buying so much food?" Didn't occur to us that he didn't want my grandma to have to go grocery shopping by herself when he passed. And he passed one night, and I was staying with my grandma, and they had been married, I don't know, 50 something years at least. And I felt his spirit, like he was right there in the room with us after he passed, and he stayed for weeks, maybe months. And I felt like this overwhelming love for my grandmother, that he wanted to make sure she was okay. He wasn't going to just book it out of there. He wanted to make sure she was adjusting, getting support. And then after many weeks, he finally kind of gradually faded, that presence. And then many years later, my grandma passed away, and her death was much more prolonged. She had a stroke, and that affected her ability to swallow. And so she couldn't eat well. She couldn't drink well. And she was ready to go. And she made it clear that, she wanted to go. But I think she was kind of being tethered by people in the family who didn't want her to go. And when she finally went, we were all sleeping in the living room with her. She was on her deathbed. And the next morning, I felt like she had taken a look around, saw all of us, saw that we were fine. And then she just booked it. And she left very quickly. Oh, but I forgot to mention, before she died, she was seeing visions. She saw her family and relatives coming back for her. She saw my grandfather. She saw his parents. And she saw her father-in-law basically saying, "Get over here already. Like, it's time." And she had a pet parrot many years, even before I was born, that she was really fond of. And she saw her pet parrot flying around the room. So I think not only do our, human loved ones come back for us, our ancestors, but any beloved animals that we had a close relationship with also come back for us. And because she had a prolonged death, she had time to process what was happening. And a couple years after my grandma died, I had a dream, and I was going through a really hard time. And I was a little depressed. A lot of stuff was happening. Work wasn't going so well. And I had this dream that I saw my grandparents walking by, and my grandma was looking at me, and she was so concerned. And there were angels there, and they didn't have wings or anything, but just somehow I knew that they were angels. And she said, "Can you please help my granddaughter? Isn't there something we can do for her?" And the angels brought me this spiritual object. It's a very specific spiritual object. I'm not just going to go off on a tangent because that will start a whole debate on what the object means, but it was a very specific spiritual object with very specific symbology that I do not see every day. Like, years could go by and you wouldn't see this object. And I didn't know exactly what it meant. And then a couple days later, I was walking into a metaphysical shop, and the object was right there. And I'd never seen it before in my life in physical, and I never saw it again after. And so what it told me, and I did over time understand what it meant for me personally, but what it showed me is that my grandma, who had passed on to the other side, actually had the ability to intercede for me and communicate with celestial beings that actually would impact my physical reality,
Wow.
which was powerful. So definitely there's life after death, and we go on to having more experiences. Then the final example is my dad, who passed away very suddenly in a car crash. He fell asleep at the wheel. He wasn't even aware that he was crashing, and he died immediately on impact. And I had a dream shortly afterwards that my dad was saying, I'm not dead. I was just in the hospital. I'm better now, but why does everyone think I'm dead? I'm fine. I'm right here. And I woke up and I was like, oh my God, is he not really dead? Like, is he still alive? But then reality kicked in, and like, no, he's dead. And what I realized is that he didn't realize he was dead, because he died so suddenly and he was healthy and it was out of the blue. He didn't even understand that he was dead, and he was going about his daily life trying to understand why people couldn't see him, couldn't hear him, and why everyone was acting like he was dead. And so in that case, he needed my help. And I was able to say, look, Dad, this is what happened. Like, go in meditation, speak to him. This is what happened. You passed away. You were in a car crash. And here are some priests on the other side who will be able to explain to you the process of dying and help you kind of towards whatever's next for you. And yeah, he was just like kind of bewildered. And so I think what we experience after death depends a lot on how we die. What was our state of consciousness when we died? Do we have any unfinished business, or did we really accomplish our purpose? And, then like, it can happen many different ways, but I think that those are very interesting insights of like what just has happened in my family and how different the experiences can be. But I think it goes to say that we are still connected after death, and that we go on to continue having experiences after we die.
I love that. That's wonderful. What great stories.
Yeah.
Does that make you, does that change your relationship with death and how you feel about the idea of dying?
I think the most important thing, in my opinion, is that we are here for a reason. We're here to accomplish some purpose. And as much as we can live in alignment with that purpose, then we won't have any regrets, because once you cross over, you can't come back. You can't get that opportunity back. So I think the most important thing in being with death is to understand that we all have an expiration date. 10 out of 10 people die, and that should make us more alive. That should make us live like every day is precious, and what do we really care about? And so if you don't know your soul's purpose and you don't know why you're here, like, spend some time and do some introspection and see what is meaningful for you, because I think the most important thing is to die with no regrets.
I love that. I love that. So, you've mentioned a couple, I think. Who in your life was especially influential to you in a positive way? Now, we all have people that influence us in a negative way, that traumatize us, or just give us an example of what we don't want to be. Who really impacted you in a positive way?
Yes. Well, of course, my grandmother, unconditional love always. And I could tell all the stories of her bringing me teddy bears and comforting me. But I actually really want to focus on my theater teacher, my high school theater teacher, who was named Roger. Because as I mentioned, I grew up in a very strict evangelical household. There wasn't a lot of room for self-expression. And my freshman year of high school, when I first entered theater class, I was filled with so much joy that never left me. And my teacher, Roger, was the kind of person that would make you laugh so hard your sides hurt, And I've never found someone that could make me laugh quite as much as he did. And beyond that, I got to experience for the first time trying on different roles, different ways of being that I wasn't allowed to express in ordinary life. I got to be a wild and mischievous fairy that was running around in the audience, from A Midsummer Night's Dream. I got to try on playing a geisha in Japanese drama. I got to be part of comedies from Museum and the Art of Dining by Tina Howe, which was just all about like the absurdities and comedies of life and like funny things people talk about in restaurants. I just got to try on different ways of being. And it was very expansive. It was actually spiritual for me, because I didn't realize it at the time, but you're opening up to different levels of consciousness. You're opening up to the past when you reenact Shakespeare and consciousness from that time period. And It was very expansive for me, and I just had so much fun. I mean, it's the importance of fun. So Roger impacted my life. And then I also want to make a mention of my teacher, Natalie, who was my meditation and writing teacher for over a decade up in the mountains in New Mexico, like I mentioned. And what she really gave me was the ability to find my truth, because I was terrified because of how I grew up to express myself. I was terrified that if I, wrote the wrong thing or said the wrong thing, I'd be crucified. And she really helped me to understand my own truth, find my voice, and also have discernment of, you can't just say your truth everywhere you go, but at least it's important that you know your truth. Even if you don't share it with other people, you have to know what you really feel. And yeah, she kind of gave me that practice of getting in tune with myself and my own voice and not being afraid of it.
What a gift.
Absolutely.
That's wonderful. So from your ancient age that you are now, as you look back, what all hubris aside, what have you done that makes you feel the most proud, that you think, I really did something there, I feel really good about that?
I think the things that matter to me the most are the things that I know are living on even beyond my influence, and also will continue living on after I die. So I served as a mentor in a youth at risk program for over a decade, and also then became a trainer. And I saw miracles in students' lives. I saw them go from literally failing school on their way to become a drug dealer to flipping the script and becoming straight A students and becoming the first in their family to graduate college, and now they're parents with kids. And I'm just like seeing these transformations in people's lives who had very little opportunity, and this program managed to completely give them a new life. But it was also their choice. They had to choose it. But I just know that they're going to keep living on long afterwards, like after I'm gone, and they're going to keep inspiring their children and the next generation. So I feel good about that. I was a co-founder for a health and fitness nonprofit that made dance and fitness classes available to low-income families. I feel really good about that. That is still going, even though I have very limited time to be involved. And there actually was a situation where I sort of saved someone's life, which was
Wow.
crazy. Yeah, but it's weird because you say, what am I proud of? And in some ways I'm proud of it because I did step up and do what I was supposed to do. But at the same time, it was actually more of a gift to be part of that, because I actually got to witness a miracle and be part of that miracle. And to me, that was more of a gift. It gave more to me. And all I did was show up and step up. So because I taught health, fitness, dance classes, I was trained in CPR and first aid. I never ended up having a life-threatening situation in one of my classes, but I had the training. Then randomly, several years ago, I was on vacation in Egypt, and a woman from our tour group passed out in front of me, in front of a temple. And we ran over there, her breathing stopped, and then her pulse stopped. And I started CPR because it just kicked in to start CPR. We were supposed to go to temple, but I started CPR. I told someone to call an ambulance, and we got her there, and I got to see the life come back to her body. I got to see her pulse come back, her open her eyes again. Turns out, and she was not injured. She didn't even break a rib. She fully recovered from a near-death experience. And it turns out she was a mother of 3 children. And I'm like, wow, those kids could have not had their mother. And
Right.
I was supposed to be there at that exact moment for that to happen. And so I'm not really proud of it. But I'm happy about it. I'm happy that I was given the opportunity and I took it to make a difference in not only in her life, but the life of her family, to give them their mom back.
Wow, that's amazing. What a great story.
It was crazy. I'm still kind of hard to believe, but it happened. I actually saw someone basically come back from a very close near-death experience.
Wow. Amazing. So this is a much lighter question. What movies or books or TV shows are you into lately?
Great. So this is going to be a very odd answer. I don't actually have a TV. I haven't had a TV since I was a kid. And I think when I was a kid, we had bunny ears and got maybe 2 channels without static. But occasionally I will watch a program like at my sister's house or at a friend's house. right now, late night comedy is on my mind, because in order to get everyone to watch something, all you have to do is ban it, apparently. And so when when Jimmy got banned and put back on the air, of course, everyone has to see what all the fuss is about. So I do support our comedians. I think it's very important as individuals and as a nation that we have the ability to like find humor in things and laugh at ourselves and not take ourselves too seriously. Not in any way that is mean-spirited. I don't like mean-spirited humor, but as long as it's done in a way that helps us reflect on the absurdities of life and see things from different perspectives, I love comedy. Aside from television, I do follow several YouTubers and individual content creators. And what I really love about YouTubers is that they feel authentic and they're not as commercialized. I love your channel, especially like the detailed tutorials on Olympias. So some of the people I follow are Amy Blackthorne. She's on YouTube as well as Facebook and Instagram. And if you haven't followed Amy, I strongly suggest it, because she has so many practical protection and safety tips, both on a mundane and spiritual level. She is like a security professional. And so, you know, it's nerve-wracking time to be a human on this earth. So bumping up our safety and practical protection is a good idea. So Amy Blackthorne. I also want to give a shout out to Sanray Dafot of the Order of Chaos Magic School. He does a lot of science, like a lot of occult science videos. A lot of it is like modern chaos magic. So it's like about the science that underlies the magical phenomenons and how we can engage with that. I follow Arth Harger, who does a lot of Norse mythology, a lot of like almost archaeology. Like he does the research for me, so I don't have to. The Witch of Wonderlust, Olivia Graves, does great book reviews and is also just an inspiring person. The Green Witch, Annie, or Annabelle Margaret, is very cottage core. So she will just be like quietly cooking in her kitchen or like, you know, picking berries in the wilderness. And I love to just have Annie in the background while I am cooking in my kitchen or while I'm doing the dishes, because it's so soothing. I like Story Crow. Story Crow will tell myths. It's like very bardic vibes, where he'll just go off on a story from Norse or Celtic mythology, and it's just like listening to a fairy tale. Bente the Norse Witch has good stuff. So I like things where I'm either learning or I'm just really deeply enjoying the presence of the content creator. And I think those are the ones I can think of off the top of my head.
That's awesome. So by the time this goes live on the channel, everybody look in the descriptions, because we're going to have links to these folks too, so that you can enjoy them as well. So that brings us to the next part. What, if anything, would you like to promote?
I would like to promote House of Apples. You might not have heard of it. It's a pretty new pagan startup. It is a nonprofit, and it is about making educational resources available to various pagan communities. So it's really to serve various pagan communities. One of the things that we're doing right now is we have a free monthly pagan peer counseling meetup, where it's just online. People can come and learn peer counseling skills. So you learn things like what it is to hold safe space, confidentiality, the basics, but then you also learn about transference, countertransference. You learn about how to support people in safety planning, how to support people in just holding space for feelings, like understanding what the needs are. And why I think this is so important is there's so much going on in the world that is so distressing. Like therapists are overbooked, people don't all have healthcare. And what I want people to realize is there's a lot we can do to help each other, regular everyday people helping each other if we have the skill set. So, you know, two friends, I can come with a problem and you can literally put on your peer counseling hat for an hour and help me work through an issue. And then at the end, you take it off and we're back to being friends. And then next week, you're having a problem, you feel overwhelmed. I put on my peer counseling hat. I see what I can do to support you for that hour. And then at the end, we go back to being friends. So I think that this is a really great program, and it's a free community. And in the future, they will also be having a certification. So if you wanted to get like formally, legally certified, you can in peer counseling. But the point is, regular everyday people can help each other through the crises we face. And we're going to need that. Our therapists and professionals are overloaded. So it's going to take regular caring people stepping up and just helping out here and there, so that we can all kind of get through these tower times.
I love that. When I know that you probably caught this in my Uncrossing book, but when I was training with the physicalities of folk healing, one of my mentors said, I'm creating an army of healers. And that just really and then he said, all spooky, because we're going to need it. Now, this was in 2015, I guess, or so. And so 10 years ago, he's already shoring up for what he knows is going to be an intense emotional time where we're going to need a lot of healing. And he said, it's going to be the ordinary people, not the doctors, not the physicians. You know, it's going to be the ordinary people that are doing the majority of healing in the world. And that always resonated so strongly with me.
I see the need for it. I see it happening in real time. So
for real.
Time to step up. Yeah.
So what, if anything, do you have on your bucket list that you would like to do?
Well, I talked about creating things that can live beyond me, right? And so I think writing and storytelling is going to be a big part of that. I think it's so important that we share our stories and our truths, and also not just our truths about our lives of what's happened, but also our vision for the future. Because when all of this, I don't know if it'll ever be over, but when all the dust settles and things have torn down and systems have failed us and we're just looking over the rubble, someone's going to have to step up and create a better future, right? And so creating a vision for what we want to work towards, that could take many formats. I haven't decided, do I want to do like a YouTube channel? Do I want to write a book? Books obviously impacted me a lot when I was young and a child and felt pretty isolated, and my parents really didn't have much emotional capacity to have deep conversation. I learned a lot from books and from authors, people I never met, who just shared their life experiences, both through fiction and through nonfiction. So I would love to write a book that inspires people, because books have been such a part of what has kept me inspired in my life. And so I think that's probably, what I would love to do most.
I love that. That's wonderful. So if you were to just look at your average day that you experience, what's your favorite part of the day?
This is a difficult question because it's changed recently. So up until a few months ago, my favorite part of the day was coming home to my cat, and I loved her so much. She's this sweet little gray tabby, and she just was so loving, and she'd be waiting right there on the porch for me every time I came home. And I love her. She did get cancer and she passed away, which happens, right? But now my favorite part of the day is meditation, because I was taught by my elders that when we meditate, we don't meditate all alone in our rooms. We meditate with all beings throughout time and space forever. So when I meditate, I feel the presence of my cat, Freya. I feel connected to my high school teacher, Roger, who was my theater teacher, who passed away more than a decade ago. I feel connected to my grandparents, all of the beings that I miss in the physical. Even though they're not here in the physical, when I meditate, I realize that they're not as far away as they seem. So that's my favorite part of the day.
I love that. That's wonderful. Do you have a certain time of day that you always meditate?
It's not really consistent. I try to spend time meditating every day, but it does depend on my work schedule. But it gets to a point where it's just like, if I haven't done it, my body will be like, I need it now, and I will try to listen. But, sometimes it's in the morning, sometimes it's at night. I have other practices I do. I will like dream journal in the morning, and if I have time, I meditate, but often I have to rush off to a meeting. And then I do always do some devotional practice and meditation at night, but I don't always get to go as deep as I want. So it's like, if it hasn't happened earlier in the day, then before bed is the time, but sometimes I need a break earlier to kind of reconnect.
Gotcha. Do you have anyone, including yourself, that you really just feel needs a big dose of love and empathy and support?
Oh my gosh, there's so many things going on right now. Just want to say to everyone who's going through suffering in the Middle East, to everyone who's impacted by conflicts brewing in Portland, Oregon today, to all of our viewers, I just hope that you find something here in this online community that inspires you. And yeah, I'd say that there's just a lot of chaos going on everywhere, and there's so much need. So I think if you found this channel and you're watching it, I hope that you find something that inspires you. And to everyone who is in need, whether we know their names or not, I just hope that everyone will find what they need.
I love that. So let's just take a moment, and we're just going to put our little drop into the ocean to sweeten the waters a little bit, and just put more love and compassion out there into the world, more of the ability to relate to the experience that other people are having in a compassionate way, and not just stop our consideration of life events at the end of our nose so that it's only what affects us. Let's work on that global community feeling. So we're going to start with our getting into our bodies, doing some deep breaths, feeling the air move through us. It sustains us. It releases the toxicities from our bodies in that circulation. And then we're going to become very aware of Mother Earth beneath us. The earth that sustains us, the earth that literally keeps us grounded, that holds us safe here on this planet, and that feeds us and will receive us when we leave our bodies. And then we're going to reach up to that sky above us, to the celestial mother and father of the sun and the moon, of that amazing life-giving force, and the ephemeral promise of the moon as it slips through its phases and always comes back to us and shows us the cycles and the repetitions of life. And we're going to feel those energies enter from the top of the body, and we're going to feel Mother Earth and the energy of Earth come up from the bottom. We're going to feel them meet with a handshake in the middle around the solar plexus and the heart, and begin to interact and swirl and hug and be so glad to feel each other within us in that vessel. And so in tune with the fact that we have welcomed them in there. And it's going to mix with that heart chakra and that solar plexus chakra to get that feeling of personal power, that willingness to happen, and that feeling of heartfelt love for all the people that are going through those experiences that we talked about, and just push it right out there to them. Just let them know we see you, we're here. We really want to be that counterbalance to all the awful things that are happening, and we're not big enough to. But that little drop in the ocean can make the ocean just that much sweeter as it flows through all of them. We just push it out there, keep a little bit for ourselves, because you got to put the mask on yourself before you save anybody on the plane, and just feel that energy within us. And that takes us to our next bit, which is a conversation we started to have. And I thought, you know what, this is going to be so much better if we do it on the interview. And that is how, when people are providers in relationships, or they're especially responsible in relationships, we tend to attract a certain, I'll use the term counterbalance, a certain other type of person. So do you want to elaborate on that a little bit?
Oh, now that's all coming back. Yes.
Yeah.
Well, okay. So in my personal journey, one of the things I've known for a long time, and it's something I have to keep an eye on, is I tend to be overly responsible. And I tend to attract a lot of people who are not responsible, don't have their stuff together, and who are looking to kind of latch on to my stability, and it can end up draining me, right? So it's something I need to keep an eye on. And I'd say at a broader level, this comes from a cultural normalization of codependency. We don't realize how deep codependency is embedded in our society. We are often conditioned from Disney movies. No dissing Disney. I love Disney, but that, Prince Charming's going to come and save us and we don't have to do anything. That's not how life works, FYI. But Disney also gave me very unrealistic expectations about my hair, but we won't go into that. So also in religion, we are taught that, just listen, just obey, just do this in a lot of mainstream religion. And we are taught to be codependent on divinity rather than co-creators with divinity. And I think this just, it manifests in so many aspects of society. I know I personally have been impacted by it, need to keep an eye on it, but I also see it everywhere. I see people that are where relationships are not sustainable and they're breaking down and they turn into abusive relationships or divorce or all these things because we are conditioned to think that, you know, one person should be our everything or, you know, something like that. So I think it all comes down to boundaries, having healthy boundaries, and also diversifying, understanding that we are all here to in some ways meet each other's needs and to receive, but it needs to be reciprocal. And there needs to be some level of reciprocity. Now, obviously, if someone is going through acute trauma, they just went through experiencing violence or something, I'm going to just fully hold space for them. I'm not going to ask for a return on that. But if it's not an emergency situation, it's very important that relationships be reciprocal in energy. And so maybe you're providing a spiritual service and maybe someone's providing monetary value, or maybe, you know, people have different skills. I know people who fix doors and do home repairs, and, you know, that could be something in exchange for me buying them lunch or food or, you know, small ways. So I think different people have different amounts to give in different capacities. And it's not about it being equal all the time, like quantifying exactly how much, but it's more about the intention of having a balanced energy exchange. Because the thing is, as people who are spiritual leaders, as people who are healers, as people who are just caring, empathic people in the universe, we will burn out, we will get depleted, and then we will become a liability and need rescuing ourselves if we don't first take care of ourselves. So you know, this is a message to me just as much as it is to anyone else. If you are a caretaker, if you're someone who likes to take care of people and support people, make sure you build that support network for yourself too. Make sure you have people you can lean on. I mean, there's been several times in my life I've looked at, you know, who I'm spending my time with, and I'm like, so many of these people, I'm always there for them, but I can't lean on them to support me. And that's because I have a hard time, you know, leaning on people. And so I have to go out of my comfort zone to actually spend more time and trust that not only is it important for me to do it, it's absolutely necessary. It's not selfish for us to take care of ourselves. It's not selfish to have money. It's not selfish to have health. It's not selfish to have good working relationships and supportive friendships. We are conditioned that somehow being poor and ascetic is holy, but it's not sustainable. And another way to look at it is we cannot give away what we don't have. There's an African proverb like never buy a shirt from a naked man. So we cannot give joy and abundance and prosperity or guide people on that if we don't have that ourselves. So I realized that for a long time, I've been surviving. I've been meeting my basic needs. Like I won't deprive myself of food, but I wasn't really letting myself thrive. I felt like I had to just keep giving. And as long as I could survive, I have to try to save everybody. That's not healthy, right?
Oh.
We need to thrive. It is time for us to fully step into our joy. I've kind of embraced a worldview of ethical hedonism, which is like as much as you can absolutely enjoy life and indulge in the pleasures of life without causing significant harm, do it. Because the world needs joy. It doesn't need just like I'm surviving. It needs like joy. It needs something worth living for. And so that's kind of what I'm shifting into is like, where is my happiness? Where is my joy? I'm done surviving and it's time to thrive.
That's awesome. You know, I love how you talked about the balance. And when years ago, when I started teaching my energy healing classes, the biouniversal energy healing classes, which were specifically, it was a year-long class about how I cleanse people and how I heal people and what I do in my office when they're not in there to see. And I taught 2 rounds of the class, and these were really dedicated healers, and there were probably 15 or 20 per class. And so there was a lot of people in there, and it was a lot of energy. And I told them, look, this class does not have a price, but it has a cost. And I'm not going to tell you this class costs $150, $400. I'm not going to give you a number, because what $100 means to one person is very different than what it means to another person. What I'm going to tell you is I want you to study what this class means to you. And I want you to find something within your ability to give that you return in that amount. And I don't care. It needs to be something I can use, but let me know what your energy, we call it an energy balance, what your energy balance is going to be. What are you offering? And it was an amazing experience. Some people, it was just easier for them to just use money. Like, here's my balance, my energy is money. Here you go. And that was great. And sometimes it was, I had one gal, oh, bless her heart, every single class. And now we were in the store at this time, so we were stuck. We couldn't leave and go out to eat or anything like that. So we had to just order in or just bring food from the house. So food was a critical issue when we were running the store. And every class, she would bring in, still hot, a newly barbecued tri-tip.
Wow.
And holy cow, Eric and I died for that. It was so good. I had one gal that used a die cutter that she had, and she cut out hundreds of puppet shapes for me. And I still use, we called them puppet skins, and I still use some of the puppet skins. Other people would come in and empty the egg jars. I mean, it was wonderful. It was just this unique experience of seeing, this is what I have to offer, and this is what I can offer, and this is what I can offer. It was great. It was just wonderful. I don't think there was anybody who just skated. Everybody was really good about contributing. And it's that with all relationships. It doesn't have to be a contest for who's giving more, or you don't have to keep track, oh gosh, you gave 11% less today than I did. But it does have to feel like there's reciprocity, and that everybody is, I like it when everybody feels like they're getting the best end of the deal.
I love that. I love everything about that.
Yeah.
And I think I've seen those poppets in your store. They're really adorable too.
Those are the poppets. And the thing of that came from the barter concept. And Eric and I always had the barter concept with our store, where people could bring in a box of, okay, these are my tarot decks that don't speak to me anymore, or these are the books I've already read once and I'm not going to read again. And we would give them store credit for whatever they brought. And the idea with barter came to me from a mentor of mine who always said, when you walk away from bartering, everybody should feel like they got the best part of the deal. And I thought that was just really, and to them, they're going, this is just stuff that was sitting in my garage that I'm never going to use. And to me, it's just, wow, these are used books, and this is a first edition. Wow.
I love that on so many levels. I went to a clothing swap a few months ago, and it was so much fun because I literally brought a bag of clothes I'm never going to wear again, doesn't fit anymore, but it's great condition. You just couldn't just get rid of it. And to see, it was a blessing both way. Like I found discoveries of just really fun items that I paid $0 for. And then other people walked away with stuff that used to be mine. And it's like, oh, that looks great on you. It found a new home. So it's like, it's a way of recycling. It's good for the earth. It's good for everybody. And it's, you can have amazing things and meet each other's needs without, I don't know, like giving everything to an unethical corporation or sweatshop, right? There's so much we have if we just learn to share and reciprocate.
We had now every year, our coven at Lammas has we call it the Lammas giveaway. And so what you're encouraged to do, and I give people a couple months heads up on this, is you go through all your magical items and you basically do does this spark joy in me, or am I still feeling related to this? And you just really audit your magical inventory, and anything that isn't yours anymore or isn't about you, or anything that you make, or something that, hey, I made these 3 wands and they never found their home, or something like that. And everybody brings those to Lammas, and we have these the big white tables that everybody has put out. And So you've got this field of magical stuff that people are releasing, which makes more room for their harvest to come in because we're at the beginning of the harvest. And then after ritual, everybody goes into the fields to get their first harvest of the year from the tables. And so you find these amazing things that, I mean, this past year, I had 2 high priestesses die that I knew. And they very specifically said, make sure that these items go to magical people. I will not have these at Goodwill. These have to go to magical people. And so I was able to rehome their stuff to people that were so excited to get this headpiece or this cloak or this book. And it's just exciting to see people's eyes light up when they know that that's their piece, that was on that table for them. It's wonderful.
That's wonderful. Yeah, I've even thought about that. Like, what's going to happen to these things when I die? I hope it goes to someone who will value it. I mean, hopefully that won't happen for a while, but you never know. But I love that. I might have to check out your llama celebration. My library is overflowing. It's ridiculous. I have like all my bookshelves are full, and then I have boxes. I buy books faster than I can actually digest them. So I probably need to do some purging.
I just paired my tarot and oracle decks, and I had probably 200, 250 decks. And I had a friend that was moving to New Mexico, in fact, and she went through and she was ruthless. I mean, she just got rid of boxes of tarot cards. And I thought, wow, you know, I have so many decks, and I read professionally for people, and I use maybe 10 decks.
Mm-hmm.
And so what I have behind me now, back here, that's what I have left after I pared down. So it's very freeing, and it really, you know, I understand why people hoard their magical items because there are precious feelings wrapped up in those. But when you're sharing those with other people, it really opens up that energy a lot.
Absolutely. And you can't receive more if you have no room to receive more. So it's like sometimes things are with us for a season and then it's just not as relevant anymore. Obviously, our favorite things we're still going to continue to use, but I think there's a lot of, there's so many magical items and books and things that we can't possibly connect deeply with all of it. So it's actually doing a favor to the life of the object to let it go on and continue its magical journey with another practitioner.
I completely agree. And so yeah, that's a wonderful experience to watch somebody else get so excited over seeing something that you may have even disregarded or you looked at for 5 years and never did anything with, or it's a wonderful feeling. And I really hope that for all of my magical items that they just, like you said, continue to give to people after you're gone.
Find the right home, right?
That's right. That's exactly right. Well, Jewel, thank you so much for being with me today. Do you have anything to add before we say goodbye?
This has just been so much fun. It's always great to see you. And, you've given me something to work towards. Maybe by Lammas, that'll motivate me to like sort through my books by then. So.
I understand. I really, I just had to rebuild my book collection after it was all lost. And I had to really stop and think about the ones that really stood out to me as favorites that, I cannot be without, Paul Barrow's Master Book of Herbalism, or certain things that just really resonate with me. And so, yeah, I feel you. I feel you.
I'm really excited that you're starting this whole new chapter of your YouTube channel. And I'm excited to see who else you're going to bring on the show and just the magical community that you're building. So it's so great to see you again. Looking forward to seeing what you come up with next.
Thank you. I'm excited too. I've gotten really good responses. I'm trying to work up the courage to bang on Chris's door and get him to do a segment with me. But yeah, there's just so many interesting, fascinating people out there whose voices sometimes get isolated to the pages of a book where they have so much more to say. So yeah, so thank you so much for being here. And I hope you'll join us again sometime.
Absolutely. Take care, Katrina.
Bye, Jewel.
Bye-bye.